Hi everyone, it's Rachel. I finished grad school, so now we are back to just focusing on books I read for fun and books I write for fun. So, what a time to be alive, honestly. So, I've not done a reading wrap up in over a year because I was so focused on a lot of grad school coursework and dealing with things like burnout. So, I'm going to talk about all of the books that I've read that I haven't talked about. I've only talked about the grad school books, and I did have a very unloved tier rank video that I'm going to link down below because I rank all of the books I've read for school correlating to my English degree. So please watch it. I thought it was cute, but whatever. So we're going to talk about all the fun books. And so this is stuff I've read within the past year and a half that I've just never really told you about, and it doesn't go into any other video. So here we go. So the first thing that I want to talk about is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. It's like a gothic novel, but if Jane Austen wrote one. Like if Jane Austen wrote a Bronte novel. And for a lot of people that is a recipe for perfection. For me it was not, because I love the Brontes and I do not love Jane Austen. Sorry, don't hit me. But yeah, there's some moments I remember, there's some twists and turns, but overall I don't remember most of it. Even though it has been kind of a while since I read it, I feel like I kind of forgot things immediately. Writing's a little flowery. Basically, it's about this unnamed protagonist, and she gets married to this rich man, and his first wife, who passed away, her name is Rebecca, and the main character feels in many ways kind of haunted by her presence, and it kind of just feels like she will never fill those shoes, and it's kind of spooky and things that you don't always expect. So not a bad story idea by any means. It just wasn't my favorite. I found it a little bit bland. Sorry. I gave her a 3 out of 5 on Goodreads. Then I was in the mood for some manga. I've not read much manga at all, so I wanted to try another series, and people recommended Tokyo Ghoul to me. It's about these people that are basically, they can only eat people. Which is a problem. And so the main character is dealing with that, and he's learning to navigate the world of ghouls and trying to find, a sense of goodness and humanity. And I read the first 4 volumes, and then I got hit with grad school again, and I didn't continue. But the thing is, I did really like the first 3. I liked most of book 4. The way that volume 4 ended, though, was a little bit corny to me. I was surprised by the depth of the emotional arc as well, which I didn't really expect. So you do have action, you do have times of reflection, and it kind of surprises me how far the author will go. I wouldn't say that we have like really trigger warnings for it or anything like that. I don't like stuff like that's too much, but still, it was good. I don't know if I'm gonna pick it back up. I hope I do at some point whenever I'm in the mood for manga again. I think this is what I'll reach for, because I think I remember enough of it to just kind of jump back in. So I gave these like 4 to 5 on Goodreads. I might have given the 4th one a 3. And then I read Spiral by Koji Suzuki. So here's the thing. The first book in that series is called Ring, and that is the book that the Japanese movie Ringu and the American film The Ring was based off of. And funny story, in Japan, here we have The Ring and The Ring 2, and eventually Japan had Ringu, and they eventually came out with Ringu 2. But before they came out with Ringu 2, which was an original script, they did originally have a second movie based off of Spiral called Rasen. But the thing is, people in Japan hated the movie so freaking much that they're like, pretend that didn't happen, and then they came up with Ringu 2. And I thought that was kind of weird. I kind of get it now. So if you've not seen The Ring or read the book or whatever, basically it's about this killer videotape. You watch the video, you die in 7 days. Spreads like a virus. In Spiral, the first half is like rehashing basically everything from the first book, which I didn't mind because I'm pretty basic for it, and you're seeing another character figure everything out. But then the second half, I don't know, we hit some twists, hit some plot points that I was just kind of, I just feel like it's a little dumb for the type of story that it was. Like, we have gone from horror that involves small sets of characters to something that, like, it's more widespread than I thought. And I feel like the character's decision at the end is annoying. I know I'm being super vague because I'm trying not to spoil it. Basically, I didn't really like how it ended at all. So I gave it a 3 out of 5 because I did enjoy the first half. I love the concept, but the second half, I was just kind of like, I do own Loop, so I am going to read it eventually to see how it ends. I still haven't gotten to it, but yeah, we'll see. I don't know if I'm going to read the prequel. The prequel's called Birthday. So we have Ring, Spiral, Loop, and then Birthday. Whatever. I think my problem is when, like, this particular plot, trying to make the issue more widespread, it just comes off as kind of silly to me. Also, they're really harping on Sadako being intersex in this book. It's already kind of awkward, some of the comments that they make about her in the first one. It's more awkward in Spiral. So just be aware of that as well. Then I had a DNF. I don't DNF often, but I've been trying to get better about doing it. And it was, I'm so sad, it was How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix, y'all. So like when you think about the title, How to Sell a Haunted House, I imagined a story like someone's trying to sell a house and it's haunted, right? And then you read the synopsis and that's kind of what it sounds like. Nowhere in the synopsis does it say that there's a creepy doll. It's a puppet. It's a creepy puppet story. This girl and her irritating brother are trying to sell their parents' house. Both their parents died. And their mom has a puppet collection, and one of them is like real freaky. And I didn't really like anything about this, I'm not gonna lie. It's just not my type of horror, I think. The tone is very much like black comedy, like, and I don't know, black comedy just doesn't do it for me because it makes me not know how to feel. Like, we have these like really dark things happening and it's supposed to be LOL, but like it doesn't really feel LOL. And the parts that are kind of LOL just kind of come off as like stupid. Yeah. So, and I was reading online, the title misled a lot of people, and a lot of people were signing up for a book that's called How to Sell a Haunted House. And we got instead a book called Pumpkin the Puppet. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like if there were any clues in the title and the synopsis, this would have reached the correct audience. It sounds like this, I'm not the only person that made this error. A lot of people did. Also, normally, oh, this might be an unpopular opinion. I normally don't really prefer to look at trigger warnings for anything, even though there's content that I don't like reading about. And let me explain. Sometimes they're wrong. Like Sylvia Moreno Garcia on Twitter pointed out, this pattern of people tend to put more trigger warnings on people of color's books. And like some of the trigger warnings for Mexican Gothic are like so not what happens in the book, and some of it's like very far-fetched and like, okay, it's a stretch to say that happens. It's like insinuated at most. So I find this a lot, and I feel like I'm gonna go by like a trigger warning and it's barely gonna be in there based off the stuff that I've already read and know. And then, I mean, there's that. And I know that there's also some research that kind of shows that if we are constantly avoiding a trigger, it can just make it even more difficult to deal with in the long run. For me, this is probably the only case where I could have read the warnings and I would have been like, okay, never mind, because I don't like hearing about animal abuse, even if it's happened off page and it's insinuated. That's something that I'm just like, nope, I'm pretty much done. And then eye horror, like body horror, fine, but not eyeball stuff. I'm about to throw up just thinking about it. So yeah, I hit like 50-60% and I was like, okay, never mind. So yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna read anything else by Grady Hendrix. The tone of it is weird. I don't know about all that, so kind of sad. So yeah, DNF'd that one, didn't really like it. Then I was in like a reading slump. Because, freaking master's degree, y'all. So I started reading episode 13 by Craig DeLuey, and that just, I flew through that book, y'all. It's horror. It's about a ghost hunting show, and I love ghost hunting shows. And you have the guy that, like, believes, and then you have his wife that's on the show that's, like, this super awesome scientist that's a skeptic. And they work together, and apparently something crazy happened on episode 13. And so it's like a found footage type of book where you're reading through the blog posts on their website, you're reading through their emails, their texts, things like that. So yeah, I liked that element to it. It kind of feels like a simpler version of House of Leaves in some way, so that's kind of cool. I do like House of Leaves, and the only thing I didn't like about it is I didn't like hearing about that one dude's love life all the time, and you don't really get any of that in episode 13. Here's the thing though, it's definitely not a perfect book. The relationship between the main character and her husband did not make any sense to me at all, because I fully believe that you could be of different belief systems and faiths and come together in a marriage. I don't think that that's weird at all. Like, my husband and I are totally different. But the thing is, there's a mutual respect for what the other person believes. That's how that works. And when you have the wife that's basically saying that her husband's belief in the paranormal is like believing in Santa Claus, it's just, that's such a big part of his life. I just don't understand how that relationship ever worked. So yeah. The wife was kind of annoying, and then there was that one guy, what was his name? I don't know, there was another character that annoyed me. I have no idea. I read this book in December, so yeah, sorry. I did think that there were also moments where I wanted the writing to be a little bit more precise, especially in those moments of chaos. I found myself getting a little bit lost and like, okay, wait, what's happening? So a little bit of clarity on the author's part there. The ending is definitely hippy-dippy. That's how I'm going to describe it. And so that's not going to be a vibe for a lot of people, but I liked it. But yeah, it was fast-paced, it was fun horror, and got me out of a reading slump. So I gave it a 4 out of 5 on Goodreads. It was a fun time. So then, finally, we get to a book I really loved, because I'm normally not very picky, but like, I don't know, it just seemed like I was picking up things that weren't like my new favorite. I read Death's End by Cixin Liu, and I loved it. This is the final book of the Three Body Problem trilogy, which I love. And so Three Body Problem deals with first contact with aliens. You get to see how things wrap up in Death's End. And it goes so far into the future because, you know, it's like one of those science fiction series where eventually we have cryotechnology where you can go to sleep and wake up later. And we're following a scientist named Chang Jin. And we're seeing how she shaped the Trisolaris conflict and solution and even beyond. The thing is with this series, you gotta have all the brain cells engaged. It is very sciencey and it's kind of hard to get through at times. So it took me a really long time to read this. I started reading it last year, and so when I kind of felt like I could handle something like that in between grad school coursework, I would read some of this. It was definitely really worth it. As usual, we have these like epic descriptions. We have like these epic sweeping concepts and like a lot of interesting speculative ideas about what our future could look like after making contact with other life. And it really explores the consequences of the dark forest mentality that that's addressed in the previous book. Yeah, since it is the last book, there's not much I can really say about it. You do start in the common era with Chang Jin, and then you follow her all the way up till the end of the book and like really long in time. I have noticed online a lot of people do not like Chang Jin, and I don't trust a single one of those people. So my interpretation is that this woman represents everything that's good about humanity. If you really get to the end of this book and you think that they needed a different type of leader, and then you saw what consequences rippled across the universe because of dark force mentality and because of aggression, you're wrong. I don't trust you. You're wrong. I don't care. I almost never say that, but you're wrong. Anyway, this one got a 5 out of 5. Love this trilogy. I loved the Netflix show too. I like how that they're like enmeshing the first 3 books, so they're telling the whole story in chronological order, because normally the books you follow one character in chronological order and then you go back in the next book backwards in time, follow a different character in chronological order to see how that person influences the crisis. The Netflix one for the US is in perfect chronological order. I do want to watch the Chinese rendition as well. That one's like 30 episodes long, which is why I haven't started it yet, but I do want to see it. So yeah, good book. Then I read something really different. I don't read a lot of contemporary nowadays. I think Ariel mentioned this in a haul video, because I still watch Ariel but said sometimes, even though now she's more into like using her YouTube for like home renovation content, which I'm also kind of here for. But the, what's it called? Oh yeah. The Exhibition of Persephone Q by, and this, I'm gonna have to check the name because I don't, she's got a really cool name. Jessie Jazuka Stevens. Yeah. This one is like complicated to explain. It's a very short book and it's trying to do a lot, which ends up being its downfall. It's about this girl and she is having some marriage issues. She's living in New York City post 9/11, and so that really is an important part of the atmosphere of this book. But like, she notices that her photos are used in an art gallery, and she knows the artist and he didn't use her photos with her permission. And so she's kind of grappling with that and ownership over her own image, kind of like the description says online. And like, people don't even really believe that it's her. It's a whole thing. The problem, like I said, is like, I'm giving you the quick synopsis, which is kind of what the internet would give you as well, but there's actually like way too many things going on in this book. I will say the writing is beautiful. When I was reading this, I really wanted the author to just write me a book of poetry, because I think that she does have a knack for putting together some beautiful words and phrases. And I think that the thematic elements and the messages that she's including are very interesting and unique. There was just too many of them for a 224-page book. So like in this book, you have, you know, what it's like to live in New York City post 9/11. You have her marriage issues. We have ownership over her own identity. We have, you know, what it's like when nobody believes you. We have a lot of really confusing behaviors. So the main character, Percy, like, a lot of the stuff that she does not make any bit of sense to me at all. And I think that was a key thing that also made me disconnect from the story. Some of her decisions were just really, they've really flabbergasted me, and I didn't even understand the point of some scenes. I read online somewhere that some of it you could interpret as satire. That went over my head. That's not how I read it. I didn't really understand what was going on in some of the scenes. And it was not so much like I knew what was going on, but it's just like, why are we doing this? Yeah, not my favorite. I was a bit disappointed because, and maybe it's good that I was disappointed, because I've had an idea in my head to write about for a really long time that also tackles the question of how do we own our own personality, our own images in a world where anyone could take your photo or publish something about you. So they definitely didn't address this in the way that I was planning on doing my book, but I was just really curious to see how they would do it. But yeah, unique book, not really into the execution. So I gave this like a 2.5, and I rounded down to a 2 on Goodreads. Then I read The Haunting of Belkwood by Gwendolyn Kist? I don't know. Kisty? And this is a short horror novel about this woman who, her neighborhood just turned into a bunch of fog that no one can really get into usually. And she has this offer from someone who wants to film and do some tests and see if she can get back in, because previously one of the other girls that had escaped along with her, there's only a couple other people that did, was able to get back in. And it's really, it's definitely creepy in there. And you have like a lot of big themes about trauma, and especially going through trauma as a child. So even though this book follows an adult protagonist, I feel like the messaging makes me think of YA. I think especially because it is very in your face. I kind of would have preferred the author to have been more subtle in some ways. But a lot of this has to do with the trauma of not only going through something, but having adults around you not help you, which is really sad. And so our characters do have to come to terms with that. Instead of running away from the past, they are eventually going to have to like face it and face, you know, why this neighborhood disappeared like that and why it's now cut off. So it was a good story. But like I said, I just kind of wanted the messaging to be a little bit less in my face. And I know that this is such a, I read the kind of like afterword or author's note, and I know that this is something that, well, this was a project that was really personal to the author, and I definitely felt that while I was reading it. So I do appreciate that, and I appreciate that she was brave and gave this to the world. I did really enjoy it. It didn't 100% mesh with me though, so I gave it like a 4 out of 5. So not bad at all. Very good. But yeah, those are the books that I read that I haven't talked to you about at all. It's not very much considering my last wrap up was like a year and a half ago. I mean, granted, some of them I talk about in other videos, like really just the 5-star predictions video though. And then I have another reading vlog coming up soon that's very dedicated to some specific books. So I have that coming up as well. I am hoping to film more now that grad school is over. Will that happen? I don't know, but like I hope so. I do really enjoy making videos. I enjoy contributing to kind of the booktube community because it's one that I really like to watch. But yeah, thanks for sticking around and watching if you're still subscribed, even though I am not that good at this. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.